Lord Roberts of Llandudlo.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, as noble Lords are aware, the prayers read at the beginning of each sitting of the House are read by one of the Lords Spiritual. The Lords Spiritual sit by virtue of being representatives of the established Church, and the prayers reflect that. Any changes to alter the prayers would need to be considered by the Procedure Committee and agreed to by the House. There are currently no plans to alter the arrangements for prayers.
Without saying that in Scotland and Wales we have a different, in Wales we don't have an established church, can I just ask, is it not time for the prayers in the House, including the present prayers, to reflect the diversity of the different faiths and the different denominations that we have not only in the House but in the United Kingdom? Isn't this an opportunity for us perhaps to have a minute of silence and a minute of reflection, in addition to the prayers that we have at the present time?
Well, my Lords, I would say that the practice of prayers in the House is believed to have started in about 1558 and was common practice by 1567. The present form of prayers probably dates from the reign of Charles II. Recent changes to the form of prayers included allowing a choice from a range of psalms, which was agreed by the House in 1970 and again in 1979, and one or two other minor changes. It might be a little premature to consider changing them now.
Like the noble Lord, as a Welsh nonconformist, may I assure the Minister that many of us are wholly satisfied with the timeless sentiments and superlative prose of the present prayers, but may I ask the noble bench to consider one little matter as an act of fellowship and togetherness, that at the end of prayers we all repeat the grace, as happens in the other place.
Well, on the latter point, my Lords, I would need to discuss that with the bench of bishops, but I entirely agree with what the noble Lord said in the first part of his question. I think I don't believe there is anything in prayers which could possibly be seen as offensive to members of other religions.
Bishop.
I hope that...
No. He thinks he is a bishop.
My Lords, I hope that we will take on the point which has just been raised. And the noble Lord Roberts does make an important point about how the House is to demonstrate its inclusivity while retaining what's good and worthwhile in its living heritage. Would the Chairman comment in this year of celebration of the King James Bible and its continuing inspiration 400 years on, as to whether our prayers, which date to the same era, also embody virtues which are simple, eternal and unifying?
I'm sure the Right Reverend Prelate is right. Of course, if there are further recommendations for changes to the prayers used, I would of course be happy to look at them.
Would I agree? Would my noble, not my noble friend, the chairman of committees, agree that he has expressed, I think, the views of most members of the House, though not all, and that I personally agree with him entirely, that we must not interfere with the rights of the spiritual peers. At the same time, I believe in the idea behind this question, and we can best meet it by respectfully and humbly offering advice to the Right Reverend Prelates, either in private or in public. And is he aware that I have put down an early day motion which contains the suggestion that we have a debate on the ecumenical movement between different churches and faiths, and may I suggest we have it in the dinner hour? And if we have it in the dinner hour, there is the peril that you may hear me, and that will get you out of purgatory.
Well, the noble Lord makes some interesting points, but I'm not sure that any of them actually require an answer from me.
Well, as may I declare an interest as an Honorary Vice President for the British Humanist Association, and without commenting at all on the established church, may I say my personal preference is that we shouldn't have prayers at all. If we have to have an opening ceremony, which religion, of course, may well play its part, would you make sure that the views of humanists are properly taken into account?
Well, my lords, the noble Lord questions why we have prayers at all. It is, my lords, a strength and defining feature of this House that its practices are a matter for its own governance. These customs and practices can be altered, but after consideration within the Procedure Committee and then, of course, by the House as a whole. I would only remind noble lords that attendance at prayers is voluntary, it is not compulsory.
My lords, can I assure my noble friend that the concerns of humanists are entirely met by prayers by Christians in this chamber every day?
Well, yes, my lord.
Does the chair accept that there is a feeling that we need to move forward on this? And could I suggest that perhaps we might bear in mind the sentiments best reflected by hymn 279 in the Primitive Methodist hymn book, which begins, "When wilt thou save the people, of Lord of mercy when, not kings and lords but nations, not thrones and crowns but men." And I also include women in that.
I'm grateful to the noble Lord for informing me of the contents of that hymn, but I'm not entirely sure that I agree with him that it's the sentiment of the House that we should move on this matter.
Properly reminded the House of the traditions of its ancient past. With regard, however, to the immediate future and the anticipated reform of this House, can he confirm that there have been consultations with the representatives of Christian denominations other than the Church of England, and indeed on a wider basis with regard to the future composition of spiritual representation?
Well, my lords, I thought we might come to the arguments about reform of the House. I am pleased to say that I have not taken part in any of the consultations on the reform of the House. We will no doubt, I understand anyway, that we're going to see proposals fairly shortly for reform. It will, of course, then be a matter if and when there is a new House to decide whether they want prayers or what form of prayers that they want.
My Lords, I'm sure that the noble Lord Anderson of Swansea spoke for many of us when he endorsed the present form of prayers, but when he made the plea that the grace be said together. But, my Lords, would my noble friend agree that there are many in this House who are not of the Christian faith, such as my noble friend who sits beside me and who's a Hindu, and who warmly welcome the sentiments contained within the prayers and the majesty of the language with which they are uttered?
Well, the Lord is absolutely right, and that's that I tried to give that impression in an answer I gave rather earlier.
Sandwich.
Suggestion to the chairman of committees that we do introduce variety in the collects. There are a wonderful range of Cranmer collects, and could he say how the committee, in fact, represents the Church's views? Is there a permanent member of the Church?
The noble Earl wrote to me about the possibility of using different collects. I have the matter in hand, and I will come back to the noble Earl in due course after I've consulted the bench of bishops.